Welcome to the 5th week of our lecture series. So today we are going to deliberate on agriculture residue. This is going to be an important component among the different waste material which is being generated across the multiple domains of our society. So we are going to deliberate on this particular residue which is being generated across the globe, as well as we will try to understand that what is the situation in India, and we will also try to understand that yes, definitely once you have those waste, definitely it is going to create some challenges, as well as you will have opportunities as well. So today's lecture we are going to initiate, as I mentioned earlier, that we are going to talk about the various approaches for your agriculture waste management, because agriculture waste will be taken care of in this particular week, right? And as well as composting and biochemical processes for your waste treatment, because once you create that waste, definitely the next part is we need to convert it into some useful product or maybe in the form of energy. So once we talk about this definitive or different part of agriculture residues, so these residues are basically carbon rich compound, right? Carbon rich compound which contains, you may have cellulose, you may have hemicellulose, you may have lignin, as well as these particular residues have a very high heating value. And these need to be explored positively so as to we can convert them to those particular part, as I was mentioning, that waste need to be converted to wealth. So we need to find it out that yes, once we talk about those agricultural waste, so definitely there are groups or categories of these particular agricultural waste, whether we talk about primary waste or whether we talk about secondary waste. What I mean by agriculture waste, primary waste is basically what is going to be generated out of your harvesting. But after harvesting also, and that is in situ is going to be generated. But there are multiple stocks will be generated once this particular products is being sent to industry, and you have some byproducts. That means this becomes a secondary products. So as I was mentioning that these agricultural residues refers to the byproducts of leftover left behind after harvesting of crops or processing of agricultural products. So these plant materials can be categorized into two main types. As I said, that one is your field residues, that is your on-site residues. And these are the materials left in the field after the crops being harvested, such as we may have those straws, stems, leaves, husk and seed pods. At the same time, we have another category which I mentioned as the secondary one, that is your processing residues. So these are the byproducts generated during the processing of your crops, such as your rice husk, peanut shells and bagasse, which is basically a sugarcane residue, cotton seed and edible oil meal. And the next important part is, as I was mentioning, that once we are generating these resources, these crop residues, whether it is globally or whether it is nationally, we need to take stock of that situation. So if it is globally, it's a huge amount. Almost, globally agriculture generates over 3.5 billion tons. And if we look at the, diverse countries across, so definitely China is always at the top, maybe close to 1,000 million tons, followed by your India and followed by your United States of America. So once India is producing almost 500 million tons a year, USA is very close to India, is almost 488 million tons, like that. So as I was mentioning that these globally, once we talk about these agriculture residues or these crop residues, we are generating 3.5 billion tons. And these 3.5 billion tons in the form of either maybe stalks, maybe leaves, husks, roots and byproducts of your crop production. And India, is as I mentioned that India is almost 500 million tons. And if we look at this in the SAARC countries, particularly in the Southeast Asia, so there also we are taking a lead. You can see over here that India is almost, as I was mentioning, 500 million tons. 500 million tons, it's a huge amount. And next, once we talk about globally, definitely the next part is going to be related to our pan-India level, that how much we are producing, because this is again going to be diverse. based on the different states, based on the crop we actually plan, that means the cropping pattern or that particular cropping system which is being followed. So based on that, we have these different resources. You can see from this particular slide that there is a significant variations across the different states. If you talk about Uttar Pradesh, Punjab and Maharashtra, they are the leading one, and definitely followed by your West Bengal and the other parts of India. They are also producing a huge amount of these crop residues. So if it is Uttar Pradesh, it is almost 60 million tons. It is the highest contributor, right? Followed by your Punjab, which is almost 51 million tons, and Maharashtra 46 million tons, and West Bengal is almost 33 million tons. And as I was mentioning that, once you talk about, see the diversity in different states, it is also diverse with reference to the crop resources which you are going to use, whether it is cereal based residues being generated, whether it is pulse based residues being generated, whether it is sugar based crops that is making that sort of generation. So again, you have a diversity is there. So if it is cereal crops like rice, wheat, which is mostly dominated, and even if you look at the Indo-Gangetic plains, almost 45 million hectares, you have a huge amount, and 70% of your total residues with rice alone, and accounting 34%, as I was mentioning that, apart from this rice, wheat, you have a substantial amount of this sugarcane, pulses and fiber crops. That means, these fiber crops are also going to add to this particular pool of these residues which is being generated, across pan India. So this is the thing which I mentioned earlier, that yes, with reference to the residue generation, with reference to the residue surplus as well as the residue burn. This is if you look at the different states of across pan-India level, definitely as I was mentioning in the previous case that yes, always Uttar Pradesh, Punjab and Haryana is always topping the list as well as Maharashtra. But at the same time, we need to look at that how much, after being generation of that huge amount, there are few amounts is being used for multiple purposes, but still we have some surplus. In many cases, we have the cases of, the other part which is not substantially helping to your environment or to your ecosystem. We are going to, deliberate that at the latter part of our lecture. So now, definitely once you create this huge amount of resources or this amount of waste material, so you have a huge challenge for you. Means although it has a rich potential, but at the same time if you are not going to manage it, because of there are a number of challenges, such as whether it is in terms of logistics, in terms of cost, in terms of environmental risk, that impairment which is going to impact on your environment. If it is not properly managed, definitely you can always come across with these sort of consequences. So the sheer volume, seasonal generation and regional concentration often make this handling them much complicated. So there are some key issues are always there. As I was mentioning earlier that yes, definitely your environmental impact is going to be very, very important, whether you talk about these burning residues, release, because once you talk about this residue burning, definitely it is going to release harmful pollutants. And if it is harmful pollutants, whether it is particulate matter, suspended particulate matter, and maybe your greenhouse gases, definitely it is going to impair your air quality, leading to your air quality deterioration, and at the same time it is going to contribute to your climate change. So these improper handling can contribute to soil degradation also, as well as your loss of nutrients that we are going to see in the latter part of our lecture today. The next important part is your logistical difficulties. The residues are bulky. Always you have a huge amount which is being generated and often widely dispersed, and making collection and transportation always a costly affair and time consuming as well. And these seasonal products, because whether it is going to be produced in Kharif season or whether it is in Rabi season, that creates also storage issues, whether you are capable or whether you have that sort of infrastructure which can store that material. As well as the residues are generated in larger quantities during your harvest periods. So you need to have that sort of infrastructure in terms of that logistical support, otherwise it is going to create a huge challenge. The next important part is your economic constraints. Because farmers, they always lack those financial resources or access of those technologies of being making it or converting it, these resources to wealth, or this waste to wealth. So you need infrastructure, you need that sort of technologies available which is at your disposal, whether you are capable to use that, definitely that is going to create these particular resources more useful. So farmers may lack the financial resources or access to technology required to sustainable residue management, because we will be talking about all these important issues, whether it is related to your bioenergy conversion, whether it is composting. Definitely you need that sort of infrastructure, you need that sort of precursor material for those conversions. If it is not available, definitely it becomes a challenge for you. Awareness and education. Many farmers are unaware of these particular sustainable practices. These sustainable practices of converting this particular waste or this burden to some useful resources, that becomes an important. That means those awareness or making aware those particular farmers related to their potential benefits. Unfortunately, those traditional methods like your burning often seen as inconvenient for them, and it's a cost effective, and once it is being convenient as well as cost effective, definitely instead of you have a larger benefits you have, but you will always prefer to use that. That means that awareness and education is also going to be a challenge for, and particularly for your small farmers, means small level cultivators. For them it is a huge challenge. Once I am talking about those definitive challenges, because you have challenges, definitely you have to convert those challenges into gain, to opportunities. So these agriculture residues presents a wealth of opportunities when you are capable to manage them wisely as well as effectively. So instead of being seen it as an waste, definitely they can be valued or they can be used as a valuable resources across various sectors. And mostly once you try to use these particular resources in various sectors, agriculture has to be the one sector where you wanted to give it back. That means you wanted to return it back from where you have taken it. So this is an wonderful opportunity. You can always go ahead, or one can always try in that particular context. So that means the soil health and agriculture, these residues, these waste can be converted into useful resources like your compost or plowed back into the fields to enrich your soil organic matter. And if you are capable to increase this organic matter or nutrients, definitely this is going to help to retain your moisture, retain your you will be capable to prevent your erosion as well as you can improve your soil structure. That means the soil health and agriculture is going to have a tremendous opportunity out of these resources. At the same time, these residues can be used to generate biogas, bioethanol and biodiesel, which are excellent renewable energy resources. So technologies like biogas, biomass, these gasification technologies or pyrolysis technologies, which actually convert these residues into efficiency, or into efficiency means in the form of your either electricity or in the form of your heat. At the same time, these the straw and husk, this is going to serve as a huge resource and as a cost effective material for your animal feed or bedding, especially in region with high fodder demand. So definitely there one can always go ahead with this. And apart from these, you have your multiple industrial applications. These residues can be converted to paper, particle board, packaging material, right, and biocomposite. And there are number of startups have came up, particularly in the northeastern part of India. From these residues, they just convert those residues into useful material, particularly for decoration of your interior decoration. So these crop based residues like bagasse from sugarcane are key inputs for biomaterial production as well. The next important component is with reference to your carbon sequestration and climate benefits. All of us can understand that these residues, if it can be converted into some material, or maybe it's a biochar, if you are talking about biochar, definitely it is going to improve your soil fertility, as well as instead of, or once you think about that improvement in fertility, but at the same time it is going to sequester your carbon resources into these particular terrestrial resources, right? And once you do that, that means you are capable to reduce this residue burning. Definitely it is going to lower your greenhouse gas emission, and it is going to contribute to our effort towards those climate change abnormalities, climate change aberrations which is very frequently happening in the present context, right? At the same time, finally, definitely once you are capable to create all of them, you will be creating job creation, as well as you will be that is definitely going to generate your income. That means developing these residue-based industries can create employment. As I was mentioning, there are multiple startups that have came up which are capable to convert these residues into some material, useful material, and this will definitely create employment opportunities for rural communities. Farmers can generate additional income by selling these residues to industry as well as or bioenergy plants. More importantly, when I was talking about these particular residues, I was highlighting that particular agriculture, and when we talk about sustainable agriculture, definitely it encompasses all these benefits. So we need to look at whether we talk about soil health, whether we talk about those nutrient cycling, and whether we talk about sustainability, which is all related to either you try to improve your ecosystem services, whether you try to improve your conservation of your moisture, you wanted to improve your organic matter or your fertility condition. And as I was giving emphasis on nutrient cycling, because these residues are reservoir of multiple macro, micro and secondary nutrients. So if we are capable to convert these residues into some useful material in the form of compost, definitely we are able to recycle them into your nature earth from where you have taken it. However, once you try for all these strategies to work, but definitely you need to tailor those strategies. You need to tailor those strategies based on your situation, based on your conditions, and based on the technology and community involvement, because community participation is very, very important, particularly once you wish to achieve this particular target, or you wish to achieve this particular target or achievements, right? We mentioned about the different context that yes, these residues, we have been able to produce this much of residues across different states of India. But at the same time, I said that yes, it can be converted to some use. But unfortunately, when I was talking about that, yes, how much is being generated, how much is that particular residue is still being surplus, and how much is of that particular residue is getting burned. So from that segmentation, this particular figure I have shown you earlier. So from this figure you can always see that yes, whether when it is Uttar Pradesh and Punjab and Haryana, if you look at the amount which they generate, and a considerable part is being burned. And if you are going to burn it, definitely it is going to create those environmental issues or concerns. So this practice creates severe air pollution, right? Whether you talk about harmful smog, which affects the environment, and definitely it is going to impact your public health. So this particular burning of your crop residue significantly increases the mortality rates and reduces your crop yields, while posing a severe threat to environment, soil health and human well-being and air quality. So this has to be taken care of. Because once we think about generation of those resources, but if you look at the other many southern part of India, you can see over there the amount that the resource being generated, that means the residue being generated, and the amount that been burned, it's a very minute amount, and there are many states they don't burn even. So we were talking initially about that awareness, sensitization, creating that sort of sensitivity among those stakeholders, among those small farmers, because they always look for those very shortcuts. So that has to be taken care of. And in this context, there is a national policy for management of this crop residue, and these data has been generated out of those particular activities. So now, once we talk about that particular inefficient use of these resources, definitely we need to look at, because I mentioned those particular broader heading, but we need to look at in complete details that how it is going to impact, how these crop residues can lead to your several environmental issues, some of which have far-reaching consequences, whether you talk about air pollution. We talked about that open burning of crop residues that releases harmful pollutants including particulate matter, PM 2.5, there are carbon monoxide and toxic gases like methane, nitrous oxide, right? And this can contribute to your smog formation and respiratory health issues. This practice also generates greenhouse gases, and actually this is going to aggravate your warming and your climate change. So you have your loss of soil fertility as well, because these residues are burning off your strips to the soil essential nutrients like nitrogen, phosphorus, sulfur. I mentioned multiple micronutrients as well. So that is going to be lost. That means it is reducing your fertility as well. We mentioned also about that destruction of your beneficial microbes. That means the microbial biodiversity is going to be impacted once you do these sort of practices, as well as it is going to impact your water conservation. That means these residues leaching can introduce your organic and chemical contaminants into your water bodies. And once it is coming to your water bodies, definitely it is going to affect your aquatic ecosystem. And if your ecosystem is going to be impacted, definitely your water quality is going to be impacted. And this burning residue can also lead to an increased deposition of ash nearby your water system. That ash deposition can definitely create some issues of that particular, whether you talk about those cells or those deposition is going to create some sort of the entry of those fresh waters through your precipitation is going to be always impacted. You have your biodiversity loss. I was talking about that particular loss of your local ecosystem impacting your flora, fauna, and those microbial biodiversity, particularly some of those microbes, very essential, important microbes which are very, very important, particularly for your nutrient cycling and soil and water health. That they disrupt your ecological balance by reducing those habitat and food sources and various species. At the same time, most importantly, everybody, we are very, categorically looking at this context of climate change. So inefficient use of these resources or these residues definitely contribute significantly to your greenhouse gas emissions. And all of us know that this carbon dioxide, which is a product of, it is a resultant product and which is a major driver of your global warming, which is resultant impact of this residue burning. It prevents your residue from being used for carbon sequestration. I mentioned about those impact of this carbon sequestration on your soil health, soil viability, right? And waste of potential resources, residue could be converted to valuable products I mentioned. So, once we are capable to do this, definitely we'll be able to have a win-win situation. Otherwise, we'll have a definite, rather far-reaching consequences we have to face. These are, schematically we have shown that how it is going to impact. I already detailed the climate change, the smog and haze, the aerosol and particulate matter, and then increase of toxic pollutants. These all will come under those atmosphere, your climatic impairment. And once you do this sort of impact of your residue burning, definitely you are going to create your health issues. I mentioned about those, primary related issues related to your microbial biodiversity. The issues related to those particularly larger animals, whether it is related to your pulmonary and lung function, increased your mortality rate, as well as it is definitely is going to impact your economic development, the productivity loss and loss of farmers' income per capita. And I mentioned in a detailed way that how it is going to impact with reference to soil, whether it is with reference to fertility, whether it is related to its productivity, whether it is related to your impact on your soil health, in soil biodiversity. So this is in a nutshell to tell you that yes, if it is not being properly used, definitely we have to have this sort of far-reaching consequences. Or we have tried to understand that what is the amount this country is generating, as well as we have also seen that how much globally we are generating, and there are the threats, there are challenges and there are opportunities. If we properly manage it, there is no issue. If you are not capable to use it properly, or if it is not managed properly, definitely there will be far-reaching consequences that I have detailed in the deliberation or discussion. So today I am going to wrap it up over here. Thank you very much. We will join tomorrow in the next class. Thank you.